my name is Jess and welcome to my channel, Reads of the Ravenclaw. Today I'm going to be filming for you my first ever book haul, which I am really excited about. I think I've got 11 or 12 books on this list, so that's quite a lot to get through, so let's just get in with the The first book I have here to show you is The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter. I actually picked this up from my college. My college has sort of this bookshelf section in its English department where you can take books off of it, and they're mostly just sort of like used or second-hand ones that used to be on the school syllabus, but I discovered it at the start of this year and it is my new favourite place in my entire college. I've stolen more books from it than I should already. This is like a collection of very short stories. It's a very short book and I think there are like 7 or 8 stories in there in total, and they're all retellings of fairy tales, but I think they're retold to have some sort of political relevant to today edge to them. I'm not quite sure if I've got that right, but that's sort of the impression that I got from the retelling that we did in class, which was of Beauty and the Beast. I'm really excited to read this. I don't read that many short stories, but the ones that I have read I really love, and particularly this kind of fairy tale bend on them I think will be super interesting to look at, so I'm excited for this one. Next up we have a book that I read sort of towards the end of December, and that is Brooklyn by Colm Toivin. I don't really know how you pronounce Irish names. I'm sorry. I know I'm an awful pronunciator. Brooklyn is the story of a young woman named Ailish Lacey who in the 1950s emigrates from Ireland to Brooklyn, where she settles in a boarding house and works in a big department store. It is a story about home and what constitutes as a home, about first love, about leaving and loss. I really want to watch the film version with Saoirse Ronan. I think she's a wonderful actress, which is why I picked this one up. I really love the time period and the themes it addressed, and it was just a super enjoyable read. Next up we've got The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and that gold is showing up crazy in the lighting. The Song of Achilles is historical fiction and it's based around the relationship of the Greek hero Achilles and Patroclus? I'm not really sure how you say his name. I think it's Patroclus. That was how I've been saying it anyway. I really love historical fiction, but I haven't read a lot of historical fiction that goes as far back as The Song of Achilles is, and I also really love the fact that Madeline Miller has chosen to go for a really romantic bend on a story that normally, maybe traditionally in mythology, would focus more on the battle than the relationship. I was really excited to see this in a bookstore and I had to pick it up because of how much great stuff I've heard about it. Next on my list is a book that my mum and dad got me for Christmas, and that is Very Good Lives by J.K. Rowling. Very Good Lives is the hard copy of J.K. Rowling's commencement speech at Harvard, I think in 2000, I don't know what year. I don't know why I tried to add that on there. The two main themes that she addresses in this speech is failure and imagination, and it's just such a wonderfully written, honest, moving speech. I keep it on my bedside table and I read it whenever I'm feeling demotivated or down because it's just so wonderful and moving, and oh, I've said all these things but I just want to carry on praising it. It's also a really beautiful copy. It's a hardcover and it's got like a lot of little illustrations. I don't know if you can see that one there, and it's just a lovely sort of bedside table book. Next up we have a book that I really know nothing about, and that is The Magicians by Lev Grossman. Grossman? Oh, what is it with me and names today? So I'm quite confused about the premise of the story. All I really know about it is it follows a young man that goes to a wizard school, and I've had some people sell it as an adult Harry Potter, but then I've also had some reviewers say that that's a complete misselling and it's nothing like Harry Potter, so I don't really know what to expect from this, but all I know is that there's a school and it's magic, and that's just enough for me. Next up we've got The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater, which is another book my parents gave me for Christmas. Thanks, Mum and Dad. So The Raven King is the final book in Maggie Stiefvater's The Raven Cycle series. I recently read Blue Lily Lily Blue and I loved it, and I'm just so excited to see how Maggie Stiefvater ties everything up in this book. What's really great about the rest of this series is the characters. They are just so wonderful and flawed and detailed, and Maggie Stiefvater does such an excellent job of writing them and their dynamics. The Raven Cycle is about a bunch of teenagers living in Virginia who are searching for the remains of a dead Welsh king, because it is believed that when they find the remains of this king they will be granted favour. They will be granted favour. But it's just such a wonderful series. It's one of my favourite YA series that I've ever read, and I can't wait to get to this one. Next up we've got my current read, and that is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I am a huge fan of the books by the Bronte sisters. Jane Eyre and The Tenant of Wildfell Hall are two of my favourite classics and even my favourite books of all time. I genuinely do not know much about the plot of this at all. I just kind of know as much as everyone knows, which is that it's about two lovers, Cathy and Heathcliff, and their relationship, and I'm kind of a little way into it and I'm really surprised by how unbelievably unlikable the characters are, but I also like that they're unlikable but well written. I hate this kind of preconceived idea that every character we read about must be a lovely person. That is not how it should be, in my opinion. I don't think it's fun if all of the characters that we read about are saints, and I really think that Emily Bronte so far has done a really good job with Cathy and Heathcliff, and just can't wait to review this one for you. Next up is a huge and heavy book, and that is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. That almost fell backwards, it was so heavy when I lifted it up. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell is a historical fantasy, and it's kind of like this alternate London where magic used to exist in the past, and now it's just sort of coming back. And I think Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell are two wizards. I'm not really sure of the plot of this one either, but it is like the biggest book I will ever try and read. I think it's like over 1,000 pages, and Neil Gaiman's recommended it somewhere, so I trust Neil Gaiman. Next up is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. This book has got so much hype on YouTube, it's actually insane. I don't think I've heard one bad review of this book just ever. Monster Calls is the story of a young man named Connor whose mother is dying of cancer. And again, I'm a bit foggy on the details because I liked going to sort of books that have been really hyped without knowing too much about them, because I feel like it's so easy to be spoiled. But A Monster Calls, it either follows Connor engaging with a monster who he dreamed about, or actually believing he engaged in a monster. But I think the monster starts to tell Connor stories, and it's a lot about Connor's journey to the acceptance of his mother's fate and how that kind of where that places him, really. I deliberately got the illustrated version just because I thought it was so beautiful and would really add to the mood of the story. And again, this is one that I was kind of further prompted to pick up by the fact that the movie versions come out this month, and it has Felicity Jones in it, who's one of my favourite actresses, and it has Liam Neeson in it, who is also wonderful. And I have a thing where I have to read the book before I go and see the movie, so this one, I had to pick it up. Next up, we've got living proof that I do judge books by their cover, and that is this edition of Emma by Jane Austen. How beautiful is this? I love Jane Austen. I have read 2 of her books. I've read Pride and Prejudice and Persuasion, and I really enjoyed both of them. And I've tried getting into Emma before, but I don't think I got very far. So I'm kind of hoping that this beautiful cover would just make me want to pick it up until I've read it, because I know that if I read it, I'll enjoy it, because I do love everything that Jane Austen's written so far. So Emma is the story of a young, quite spoiled, quite arrogant woman named Emma Woodhouse who fancies herself a bit of a matchmaker. However, this matchmaking is kind of predestined to get her into trouble throughout the course of the book, and it follows her character growth as a result of that. But yeah, I think J.K. Rowling mentioned somewhere that this is like her favourite book of all time, which is just, you know, a massive push in the favour of me reading it. But really, more than anything, what sold me on this was how beautiful it is. Just look at it. Look. Oh, it's lovely. So yeah, I do judge books by their covers, but honestly, I regret nothing. Next up, we have Landline by Rainbow Rowell. So Landline is the story of a woman named Georgie who discovers that she can telephone back to the past on her landline, which sounds like a super fun and creative premise, and one that I'm really excited to pick up. I absolutely love Rainbow Rowell's books. She's one of my favourite authors of all time, and I'm just really excited to read this because generally I prefer her young adult novels. I have read Attachments and I wasn't a massive fan, but this premise just sounded so great. And I also understand that it's got like a little cameo from Catherine Levi from Fangirl, and I would read it just for that like one sentence, to be honest with you. But yeah, I'm super excited for this one. And the last book I have on my list is Every Last Word by Tamara Island Stone. So all I really know about this book is that it focuses on a young girl named Sam who suffers from purely obsessional OCD, and with that the intrusive thoughts. And as I understand it, she hasn't really opened up to many people about just how debilitating this condition is for her. I don't think even her friends know about it, and it's something she's really just kept hidden and kept internalized. Mental health and a good and honest addressal of mental health in literature is something that is insanely important to me, and something that kind of annoys me about the way that mental health is generally looked at in novels, and particularly YA novels sometimes, is that I feel like sometimes it's considered fashionable to be mentally ill. And what I mean by that is a protagonist will be like, oh, I'm so socially awkward, and everyone's meant to be like hashtag relatable, when really they might not be as socially awkward as an actual person who suffers from social anxiety is, and I feel like that's really unhealthy. Obviously there are books that treat mental health so incredibly well, but I feel like it's a really fine line that some authors work, and some of them do very likely unintentionally lean slightly into the romanticization, I don't think I've said that right, romanticizing of mental health. And I have heard that Tamara Islandstone does such an excellent job of just not doing that, of treating it really, really honestly. And intrusive thoughts and intrusive thinking is something that I have definitely heard a lot about. So I'm just really excited to see how she treats this character and her personal journey in this book. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. That was my first ever book haul. I feel like I have officially crossed a booktube milestone. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon, so goodbye.